Thank you, Arian, for joining the introduction to Whiteboard.chat webinar. We're really happy to have you here today. Thanks for spending your time to understand how to use Whiteboard.chat more effectively and have us help you out in your journey towards teaching and engaging all our students. So the agenda for today essentially is going to involve just a quick introduction of what Whiteboard.chat does. We will have a demonstration of several features, several basic features, and we might include a few advanced features as well in there. But the main idea is to help you all as educators and teachers to engage your students and use Whiteboard.chat more effectively. So please feel free to type in your questions into the Zoom chat window. I have my colleague Pawan who has joined in as well, who I will periodically pause and take questions, and we will try to answer those questions. Okay. And please do go on mute if as much as you can, so that it would avoid distracting everybody. All right, so here, let's get started here. So I think since everybody here is pretty much a teacher or educator in one way or the other, so you're all very familiar now with the online tools that we have available for managing our classroom, right? On the left, we have all the learning management systems like Canvas and Google Classroom, Schoology, and there are a few more that have come up since over the last year, right? And then towards the bottom right, we have the just the video and audio tools, right? Conferencing tools like Google Meet, Zoom, and Microsoft Teams, and now, of course, there are many more as well now. But these are the most popular ones. But the LMSs and the conferencing tools are lacking what the teachers really need, which is the ability to observe what their students are doing, right? They want to bring their teaching content to students, but also they really want to know how their students are able to understand, able to progress with their assignments and so on. I'm just going to take a second to pause my notifications here. All right. Sorry about that. Right. So Whiteboard.chat excels in that area of observability and engagement, right? And that's what we'll see how we go about doing that. What we get with Whiteboard.chat is that teachers can prepare their content in form of a whiteboard. So the whiteboard can have several pages, and you can have different types of content on each page. And it's almost like having a whiteboard in the classroom where students are all able to see this whiteboard. Now, the students, when they join the whiteboard session, they all get a copy of the teacher's board, right? And then that point onwards, it's almost like the teacher has the visibility of every student's notebook and to see how they're making progress on their assignment. So students are not able to see the other students' books. They can see the teacher's board. So whenever the teacher adds any content, removes any content, they can see that real time. And when the students add and make changes to their board, the teacher can see that too as well, right? And now this system can be used completely asynchronously as well. So we'll see how that all works out. Okay. Now, when we launched Whiteboard.chat, which is about, I think, August of 2020, if I recall correctly, we initially started with a few set of features, and teachers loved it. Teachers loved the observability piece of it, and they started giving us feedback about the tools that they use in their classrooms and whether we could incorporate them in our Whiteboard.chat. And that's exactly what we did. We just listened to teachers, and so we have a huge number of teacher design features. So you'd be surprised to see how many of the manipulatives and tools that you use in your classroom, in your physical classroom, are now available in Whiteboard.chat. And it's because of that there's been a huge adoption of our tool, and teachers across the world are using it right now. Now, to be able to engage with those teachers, to get feedback from them, we've been very active on the social media front as well. So we have our mailing list, our email address, feedback@whiteboard.chat, which is always available for you guys to send questions and comments and any issues that you may run into. We have a very active presence on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter as well. So for example, here we have the teachers using Whiteboard.chat Facebook group. And we also have a YouTube channel, the Whiteboard.chat YouTube channel, which you can directly go to. I will paste a link for both of them shortly. And even if you don't have the link, just go and search for Whiteboard.chat on YouTube, and you'll find tons of videos, not only posted by us, but by many other teachers and educators who have found Whiteboard.chat very effective in their teaching experience. Right? So let's get started really quickly here. I'm going to switch over to Whiteboard.chat. So now the application is just a browser-based application. So all that you need to do on any device, it could be a Mac, it could be a Windows device, it could be a Samsung tablet or an iPad or a Chromebook. Pretty much most of the mobile devices, you can open up your browser, go to Whiteboard.chat, and you'd be able to access the application. So you do not need to download any application specifically. You don't need to install any software as such. Now, some things really quick to mention is that we take privacy very seriously, student privacy, teacher privacy very seriously. So our privacy and terms and conditions are all available in the bottom left here. Please do review them when you can. And we have signed up with several school districts as well. So if your school district would like to use it, or your school itself would like to use it and would like us to sign any agreements, please do reach out to us. Again, here's feedback@whiteboard.chat, and we would gladly be able to review your privacy requirements and get an agreement signed up with you. Okay, so now let's get started here. So when you click on start drawing,
later, girl.
Right. So Whiteboard.chat can be used in two primary ways. One is the start collaborating way. So this is more of a whiteboard where you're kind of familiar with having a single board where all the participants can join, and anybody can annotate on the board, anybody can delete objects on the board. Everybody is pretty much on a level playing field here. So that's more of a standard whiteboard. What we would be focusing on for this webinar, and that's where Whiteboard.chat shines, is the ability to start teaching. So that's where you can create and assign individual teaching boards for students. You can upload existing content that you have. You can create new content. You can even reference content using YouTube videos or the website widgets that we can add. And then, as I mentioned, that all students get to see that content and interact with it. So let's get into start teaching. I'll go over the UI all in a bit. Now, one thing to mention real quick is that if you feel overwhelmed by too many tools in the beginning, one thing that you can do is go to this gear icon here, which is basically a settings icon. And then you can enable a starter mode. So if you do that and you save that, it reduces the number of tools that you have. So it sort of lets you get more familiar with the more basic tools. And then once you get used to those, it gets less overwhelming when you start going into the advanced features. And that's just a helpful tip there. So I'm going to disable the starter mode, of course, for this webinar. Okay, so that gives you a real quick tip that this gear icon out here is the settings icon. Right now, let's just quickly go over this the user interface itself. On the left, we have a toolbar which you can open up using the 3 lines menu, or which is also called as the hamburger menu. This gives you a text description of the various tools that you have available here. So you have several drawing tools which are all accessible using the arrow button here, and we'll look at all those tools in a little bit. I'm going to jump down a little bit here and look at the upload icon. So let's say I have an existing PDF which has some assignments on it, and I would like to upload that onto Whiteboard and have my students start working on that. So I'm going to click on upload. Now there are several different options here available for you to upload as well. You can upload files from a computer as you would expect, or if you have them on Google Drive, that's an area you can do that. There's few options for gameplay and bingo, which we are typically cover in a slightly advanced webinar, but you can look at those in our documentation as well. You can upload also from a phone as a scanner, and then also using a live worksheet, which I can demo later on. But let's start with this basic one, which is the upload files from computer. Okay, so this brings up a panel as you'd expect that would shows you the files on your computer. Let's say I pick up a PDF which has a few different, I think 3 pages. Place value chart is my assignment. I'm going to collapse this over here. So now there you go. So now my my PDF has been uploaded to whiteboard.chat, and I can scroll through various pages of the whiteboard using the page control tool at the bottom. So as you can see, each page got assigned to each page of the PDF got assigned to a different page of the whiteboard. Okay, and so now the teacher can, annotate on this whiteboard. They can highlight specific areas or give specific instructions. For example, right? So you can give instructions of this sort. And so your lesson is essentially ready, right? So now the next step, of course, is to...
Hey, Sid, sorry to interrupt. There's a request to go a little bit slower.
Sure. Okay. So let me just go over this part a little bit again, since I've been a little quick on that. So let's say that you have an assignment in the form of a PDF document and you want to upload that. So what I did was I went over to the upload section. So if I open up this toolbar, you can see this is upload. Okay. And so I clicked on upload files from computer. And all I did was I selected this place value chart PDF, right? So, and then I hit open, and that's when the PDF got imported into Whiteboard.chat. So now I've prepared my assignment, and I would like to have students join into the assignment. And so this is how I go about doing that. So on the top left here, on the top right here, sorry, you have the invite button. So when you click that invite button, you can see there are various options also to invite students. The easiest one is to, of course, copy this link out here. So you can just click on this blue button, which copies the link to the board. Now, but it's very important for you to copy this link from here and share it with the students, and not copy the link from your browser bar, because the link that you see on the browser address bar is specifically for teachers. So you don't want to share that. You want to share the one which is out here, right? So I'm going to paste this to my colleague Pawan so he can join the board as a student. And what I will also do in parallel is I am going to open a second browser window, which is an incognito window, and join as a student myself. Now, as you can see, I see a login panel here. Now, when you start using whiteboard.chat, there are two options that the teachers can get. They can have students log in anonymously, or they can say that, or I have selected only logged in users can join the board, and which is why my students have to log in before they can join the board. So for the demo right now, I'm going to disable this. I'm going to save it. So now my students can join in without really logging in. So let me refresh this. And so when I allow my students to join in anonymously, all that they need to do is type in an alias. It could be, let's say, any name that they choose. Of course, it will be easier for you to know who they are if they put in their real name. But there you go. So now this is the student's view. Let me change the color here. So if the color selection icon widget is up here. So let's say this Sarah likes pink, let's say. Right, so and just for fun, their frame color changes, and it's a nice little utility for engaging students. So as you can see, this says the student board is up here, and that's a student's name and so on, right? And I'm going to make this a little smaller so you can compare what I do with teacher's board and the student board. So now the student can work on their assignment. So let's say the student clicks on writing and types in some numbers. Right. So, and as you can see now, this is whatever the student has written on their board, it does not reflect back onto the teacher's board, right? The teacher's board stays pristine, but the student's board has been updated. Now, if the teacher wants to see what the students have been working on, right? So now the teacher has access to this tool called the grid view. So this is this button down here. We click on this, and I can see that I have two different students. So this is my teacher board right up here, and there are two boards here. So this is my student Sarah, as you can see here, and this is Pawan who has joined. So I can see Pawan's been really busy. So I can click on that board, and then I can get a preview of the board, or I can even join the student's board. saying, okay, this is great. I love the work that you've done. And now I would like to give the student some feedback and in form of a sticker. So I can go to this section on the right-hand side. There are various tools here. I will go over those in a second. But let's say that I'm going to look for a reward sticker. So there are several different categories of stickers, as you can see here, or even manipulatives. So I'm going to look for reward. And let's say well done. And I can put this up here. Right? And the student immediately gets feedback saying, okay, this is, if I go back to, now this is the go to instructor button. So I can go back to my board. And this, let's say that I look at the grid view again. I can see that the well done sticker is out here. And so you can get immediate feedback to the students and see what they're actively working on, right? So if the students start making any changes, you can actively see what the students are making and how they're making progress as well. So let me pause there for a second and just make sure, see if there's any questions.
So there's one question said, is it possible to upload PowerPoint?
So the way we upload PowerPoint is that you can convert them into a PDF document and upload them, right? And there's also the option of uploading a deck in the form of a presentation mode. So let me see if I can demonstrate that. Let me keep that hold of that particular demonstration for later part of the webinar, because there are quite a few features I'd like to go over, but I'll definitely jot it down so we can see if we can cover that. And if you include the PowerPoint in that technique, then you can have them actively work on the slides as well. Okay, so let me.
Another question: does the instructor go to instructor button disconnect you from the student board?
It disconnect, well, it doesn't disconnect you from the student board, but it changes your view. So if I say go to my book here, that means I'm just going to the teacher's board. So the student can continue working on their board. And if you go back to the grid view, yes, you will be able to see the student board as well. And of course, that also means that if you make any changes to the board, so let's say that I add some more material here. Let's say I annotate this in a particular, add more stuff here, add more some math manipulatives, for example. So let's say I add some comic character, right? Let's say I put a superhero here. And if I look at the grid view, or if I look at the student view, so let me switch over to my student's view. So this is Sarah's view. As you can see, the change that the teacher made immediately got reflected onto the student board as well. So I hope that answers the question. Okay, I think there's another question.
Yeah. So basically, it's about showcasing. So can you show how you can showcase a student?
Sure, let me do that. So as you can see, Pawan has been working on his board very diligently. And let's say I want to demonstrate, I want to show that particular board to all my students. So I can go up here, which is the participants panel. It shows you all the students that are there on your board. And then you can see a list of the students out here. There are a few more tools we'll talk about in a second. And so what I can do is I can click on this button called Showcase, which now brings up Pawan's board for all the students. So this is the teacher's view changes into Pawan's view as well. But if I switch over to and look at Sarah's view, now I can see that Sarah is also able to see Pawan's view. Now, thing to keep in mind is that when you showcase, it's okay by default. The students or the board owner's name is not displayed unless the teacher specifically mentions that or wants to show that to the students, right? So some teachers like to have that, and students like to have that privacy, so we don't really show the name by default. And then you can disable showcasing by clicking on this button. Alternately, what you can also do is you can showcase multiple students, so you can even have two different boards visible, and that's another ability that we have introduced for teachers to be able to compare and contrast different boards as well. And to disable showcasing, just click on this button, and that changes both the teacher's view back to the teacher's board and the student view back to their board. Yes, Paul, any other questions? Are you in mute, Paul? Yes.
Can other students mark up the showcase work?
No, you cannot. So one thing you want to make sure is that in the settings menu, we can see that you can click on more settings. And you can say that students can only draw on their individual or group boards. If you this is enabled by default. So if you disable that, then of course you are giving them the ability to annotate in other places as well.
Another question. Yeah. And does a class work on the same board at the same time, or do they see what the teacher has put on their individual device as their own board?
So now, of course, the board, it depends upon the invite link that the students have used. So for example, if you send your students, the same classroom of students, 3 different whiteboard links, then of course they can all work on 3 different whiteboards. Some of our teachers even have different browser windows open to different boards. They have a second screen and they can observe people, students working on different boards. That's one thing. The other way is that if they teach, students can be working on different pages. So for example, let me switch over to Sarah's view here. So Sarah could be working very well on page number 2, right? So she could say, so she's working on this area, she's adding a few numbers here and so on, right? So she's now, and if I go and the teacher now goes to the grid view, the teacher gets to see whichever page the student is looking at. Right, so this is all the page number 2 that Sarah was on. This is page number 1 that Pawan is on. So they can work on different parts of the same board at the same time as well. So their views are not necessarily all locked in. Hope that answers the question. Okay. Now, follow-up sort of question for that could be that what if the teacher wants to control what the students are seeing, right? So let's say that the teacher wants to have the students' view follow whatever the teacher says. Now, if I click on the participants panel again, there's a feature called the follow teacher mode, right? So if I click on enable this, now I'm going to switch over to Sarah's view here. So as you can see, Sarah is now seeing page number 1, just like the teacher. And when the teacher switches to page number 2, Sarah's view also has changed to page number 2, right? So you can, if you have younger students who have a little bit of challenge in terms of navigate their ability to navigate pages, the teacher can enable follow teacher mode and then show them around before getting started on the assignment. Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, I think we can continue, Sid. We
Okay.
can come back to this later.
All right, so we looked at the very basic feature of uploading PDFs and inviting the students. Now let's look at some of the tools and the user interface controls that we have. One of the important things to note is that as you switch different modes, say if I go into select mode or move and resize, there's an indicator out here on the right which helps you out and to understand which mode you are in, because some of the features that are dependent upon which mode you are in. So let's say that I go to drawing tools. Let's take a look at the various drawing tools that we have. So obviously I just already showed you what a click and draw is. It's freehand drawing. You can use different styluses. You can, if you're on a mobile device, which has a touch screen, you can use that as well. You can draw lines. I can change my pen thickness from here. So let me make it a little thicker. All right, and I can draw arrows. We recently added the feature to also draw curves, a double arrow. There's also some interesting shapes here. If you pick triangle, for example, you can also specify the angles. So if I say 60 and 30-degree angles and I set it, I get to specify exactly the triangle that I want. You can also introduce other different shapes like different polygons. So you can specify I want a polygon with 7 sides, and so it can generate whichever shapes that you want, right? And now here's another really interesting thing. If you're a little bit more drawing challenged, you can use a feature called Magic Draw. This lets you draw an object and it guesses what you're trying to draw. So for example, if I'm trying to draw a bicycle here, right? Let's say I overlap this a little bit. let's say, let me close this. Let me pick it again. Pick magic draw. I'm going to draw back here. And here you go. So I can pick this suggestion and there. I can make the content a little bit more better looking for students, or even they can use this to improve the quality of the boards. Then we have different types of text tools. So I can just say click and type. So we can type in content here. You have a basic text editor as well. This is for maybe larger pieces of text that you may want to type in. So if you want paragraphs and things like that, that's probably more convenient to have a text editor. We have a text box for answers. I'll demo that in a little bit. There's also the ability to handwrite. So let's say let me switch over to a different page maybe. So as I write, it suggests exactly what I'm trying to write, right? So I can put this. So you can do handwriting recognition on, let's say, on a touch screen device. You can use a math editor. So we have some nice ability to type in some complex math as well. So for example, I can type in like x square. I can type in, say, sum x equal to 0 to 10. X plus 4 plus x 3, and so complex stuff can be written here as well. And to be able to exactly figure out what type of math you can or what you need to type in to get the exact math equation, you can go to our help section, which is up here. Click on that, and we have a lot of documentation just to give you a good starting guide to it. There's teacher's guide, the student guide, and what I was looking at was the math input guide. So if I click on the math input guide, it shows you the various ways in which you can type in different types of forms of math. So if you're kind of familiar with LaTeX, you'll be a little bit more used to this, right? Okay. And switch back here. And but again, this help area is very, very useful. You can take the guided tour. You can look at various tips on how to navigate. You can also register for webinars and things like that. So quick tip there. All right, so let's see where we were on the math editor. You can add post-it notes, right, and make your board a little bit more colorful. You can, of course, write on the post-it notes and things like that as well. And we have the ability to manually grade and so on. So we can typically cover that more in the advanced section. Okay, let me pause again in case there are any questions.
Yeah, a couple of questions, Sid.
Sure.
First one, if I'm working virtual with one student, can the student write on my board without getting an invite?
Well, they have to join your board. So they may not get an invite, but for example, here's one way in which students can join your board without getting the invite. They can look at this code out here. And so let's say if I go back to Sarah's board and if I type in Whiteboard.chat, and the student can type in the classroom code here and join the same board. So for example, if this was
hello,
Sarah will be able to join the board using the same classroom code as well. Does that answer your question? I hope I understood it correctly.
The second one is, can the student work on their board after the class session is over?
Absolutely. That's exactly what I mentioned at the start, is that the content on this board can be prepared by the teacher in advance or can be updated during class also. And once the board is prepared, the students can work on it at any time. So all that they need to do is join the board, and they'll get to see the content that they worked on. So for example, if I close, if Sarah is out here and Sarah closes the board, actually, let me see, since this is in incognito mode, it may not look right, but yeah, so, but to answer your question is that, yes, the students can work on their assignments at any time. Now, while I'm answering that, I can also show you a quick feature that, let's say that, I'm going to quickly mute. Yeah. Let's say that this teacher wanted the students to only work on their assignment to a particular time in the day, and then will lock the boards. So you, as a teacher, you can go to the participants panel, and you have the ability to lock the whole classroom. And if you enable that, now it says board locked by the teacher. And now the students can now use their invite link to join the board and view it, but they will not be able to um, make any changes to the board. Right now, you can do the locking of the board you can do the locking at a board level, or you can also only lock a particular page. So if, for example, if I go back to the participants panel, I can say lock a page, and the page that I'm currently on, page number 4, will be locked. Right. So so the students can make changes to other pages, but not this one. Okay. Any other question?
So Sid, can you also show how to lock it using the timer?
Yes. Thanks for the suggestion. So let's say, on the top panel here, the toolbar here, you have the class timers. So this is one way to use a timer, is to instantly start a timer for 10 minutes, right? And all the students get to see the same timer. And the other way to do that is to expire at a specific time if you'd like, or you would also be able to say that the student has only 30 minutes to complete this board, and it will start exactly when the student joins the board, and you can also lock it at the end of it. So this is what Pawan is referring to. So at the end of 30 minutes, the student board will automatically get locked. Okay. All right, and now one other quick thing to.
Sorry, couple of more questions.
Sure, Pawan, go ahead.
Okay. So how the other one is there any way to prevent students from posting anything inappropriate, language, photos?
So in terms of what they have access to now, if they are on a device that does, like, if it's a device that is provided by the school, schools prevent access to certain websites, and so that helps you in controlling what content goes in. But if they have access to the overall internet, they literally can copy and paste anything, unfortunately. So it's very hard to really restrict that type of content that you can add there. But the teacher has visibility at all times to the student boards, and then the teacher can join and always remove that content.
And one more big thing which is different from any other whiteboard is that no other students in the class see it, right? Because each student gets their own view. So only the student who's putting the inappropriate content will see it. None of the other students see it. The teacher has the ability to clean it up as well. And there's one more question, Sid. Is this the same as Whiteboard.5? And if so, what's the difference?
No, so this is a different service than Whiteboard.5 for sure. The only way I guess they are similar in is that Whiteboard.5 gives you some level of visibility, gives the teacher some level of visibility of the students. But the way Whiteboard.chat works, right? So as I demonstrated, you can make real-time changes and they get immediately reflected on the student board. Whiteboard.5 has some odd mechanism where you have to actually make changes and push those changes to the students. So you'll see that just technically it's a little bit harder for teachers to use. But yeah, they're two different services entirely.
And the manipulatives as well. So yes. A couple of things more. Sorry, I think we'll be going through questions. So can you show where to lock the board one more time?
Yes. So go to the participants panel, and here you have the switch for locking the whole classroom board or just a single page.
Maybe you can show the follow teacher also, since you're here to do teacher page.
Sure. Actually, we did go follow teacher, but I'll show it again.
Okay. Never mind.
Okay.
And then one more way to find stickers.
Yes. So let me close the participants panel. So on the right hand side, you have the various options here. So I'm going to click on gizmos. So gizmos is where you have all these various stickers. Now there's a huge number of categories of items here. So you have alphabets, you have English letters, you have So, and these are applicable for, literally kindergartners to all the way to even some of them are even for college students that you could use. So you have different languages as well. We have animals, and all of these are also items can be resized, moved around. You can even animate them. For example, if I select this and I can say animate this, right? So now, and I want this to move. So I want the bee to go and buzz around, and so you can make this really interesting. They have candies, faces, clothes. The currency is very interesting. So for example, let me add some US currency here. So I go here and let's say I add a $10 bill. Now the interesting thing that I can do with the $10 bill is that I'm going to remove this. I can use a tool called the breakdown tool. So I'm just going to go to the toolbox here. And there's a breakdown tool. What this does is it breaks down items into their constituent ones. So the $10 bill was broken down into 5. I can break it down further and further, right? And this works with several different types of manipulatives. So for example, if I go to math manipulatives, and then I pick, let's say, the 10 block, right? And I use, let me put the 10 block in a little bit more convenient place. And I use a toolbar, breakdown tool, and so it breaks down the blocks as well, right? So you can use it for a large number of activities and exercises as well. Any other questions? Okay.
No, yeah, keep going.
All right. So yeah, so in terms of manipulatives, let's look at a few more. So we have 3D shapes. You can do some interesting things with these shapes as well, because in terms there's also this feature called drop zone, which we cover in an advanced section.
I have a question.
Yes, please go ahead.
I'm sorry. Is there like basic tools that we could only share with students at the elementary level? Like, what are some basic tools besides, getting them to confuse with all those tools? What would you recommend?
Let me touch upon that. So now there are a few different types of controls the teacher has to control what students get to see on their board. So if I look at my student board right now, the student Sarah has only a few controls here. That's because if I go to the settings section, I had enabled so there are two options here. Students see simple tools and students see very simple tools. So I had enabled very simple tools. And as a result of that, my student is not able to see all the tools that the teacher normally has access to. And this helps, the really younger students. Now, if I disable that, the students will get to see pretty much all of the tools that the teacher has. Of course, they don't have access to the grid view and things like that. Those are restricted for teachers itself. So you can either, so you can use that to control what they see. If you enable, sorry, the settings panel. There we go. And if I say students see simple tools, then that's a slightly more variety of tools, but then they're still restricted to some extent. Now, if you want to customize it to a much greater extent, here's what you would do. You go back to the settings and click on more settings. Now here's what this is the area where you can customize your tools. So now you have access to all the tools. In fact, every little tool that is even embedded inside these menu items, and you can specifically disable. Let's say I want, if it's checked here, that means it will be disabled. So let's say I want to remove the add media and the breakdown tools. Okay. And so once I do that, now the students, when they join, and if they go into the toolbox, you'll see that those tools have been removed. Right? So you can get a much finer grain access. Yeah. Any other questions?
So just a reminder, if you want PD certificate for this training, because somebody asked, please send us an email, feedback@whiteboard.chat. We'll get you a PD certificate. No more questions.
Thanks. All right. Now we looked at some of the gizmos or these stickers, right? And just quickly show you all that is there. So you have block code, you have comics and games, icons. You can make game pieces available as well. So if you make, sorry, if I add some game pieces or create game boards, you can use that. Now, something really interesting is if you switch over from gizmos to our widget section. Now here's really where Whiteboard.chat also differentiates itself from many other tools. So let me switch over to a different page. Okay, so let's say I would like to add a button that does one of these things to the first student. So you can add a button that goes to a specific website, navigates to a page in the book, it does some auto correction and so on, right? So let's say I just add a website. So for example, if I call this website Google, and add that. Now if the students go over to page number 5, so I'm going to move to Sarah's board and navigate to page number 5. Right, and if Sarah clicks on this button, that automatically opens up the website for them, right? So you can add links, you can add some basic calculators into the board as well. So I'm going to move this. Okay, so you can add even graphing calculators, for example. So we have enabled GeoGebra in here, so you can do some really complex graphing as well. So x squared I can add here and things like that. You can add widgets which are like a clock, for example. And these are all active widgets. So for example, so what students and teachers can do is they can actually move the hands. You can even make it into a geared clock. So that way, you have different types. Now you can even teach quarters and things like that through these clocks. We have a compass, so you can do construction. You can draw arcs, right? And do sort of bisection and all that. We have a dice. We have something called a super dice as well. So this allows you to create a dice with any sort of text or fractions. You can even increase the number of dice. So I can edit this and just say call it. And the really interesting thing here is that the students, when they get access to these widgets, they can click on the roles as well. And as you can see, it reflects, the movement is reflected also on the teacher board, right? So you can create some really interesting games and activities. There's also a molecule editor for higher grade students. We have some additional tools called form factories, table factory, and tile factory. These are normally covered in many other the advanced webinars that we have. We have instruments like pianos, so you can actually play this. We've also included a rec and rec. Let me get rid of this piano. This and that. Okay. We've got rec and rec. We've got spinners. So let's start with this. And these are all, of course, dynamic. You can work with them. You can add spinners, so things like that. You can also add a student spinner, which automatically updates based upon the students who are on your board. So if as students join, you can it automatically will include them, and you can take turns based on that. We have controls that let students give you feedback. So if, for example, you can add a traffic light that the students can change the traffic light, and that gives you a visual indicator of whether the student is understanding, let's say understanding, or wants you to go slowly or not understanding, right? So it's like a visual indicator. And of course, these are all visible to the teacher from the grid view, right? So as you can see, Sarah clicked on red, and that's available for the teacher to see here. Let me pause again. Any questions for me?
Yeah, so I think a couple of questions. How do you customize the gizmo stickers? Yeah, this in
Okay.
the And the other one, yeah, okay, let's do that one.
Let's do that one. Okay, let me go to, I'm going to go to images.google.com, let's say, and I'm going to search for a dinner idea, sorry. I wanted a dinosaur, but let's say dinner, okay? I'm going to copy this image. So I'm just taking a snippet of this, sun-dried tomato cream, okay. And I can paste that image right here. There you go. Let's say if I move it here. Now, if I select this particular image, I can add it into my objects, right? So if I call it add to my objects, and let's say I call this save as an image, or I can just create it as this. All right, now if I navigate over to my objects, now here there are a few of the other objects that I had added earlier, but let's see where is my sun-dried tomato gone here. I may have to refresh my board. Let me just refresh it real quick. There you go. There's my sun-dried tomato. So now if I'm going to work on a different board altogether, I can always go to my objects and reuse these images that I've added in there. Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah. So I think one more thing is that I think they were asking how to disable some of the options. Maybe you can show how to favorite some of the things.
Oh, yes, that's a good idea as well. So in this toolbar here, you can see that there's a heart icon here. And if you click on any of these, then it makes it sticky onto the toolbar. So it always stays up there. Actually, let me do that with another one. So for example, let's say that I will show you a different.
Maybe you can show some grids.
Exactly, that's what I was going to do after switching over to page number. This. So in our uploads section, or tools section, we have grids. So this grid now, there are several different grids here, right? Now let's say I want to show you all the various grids here. I can also do this. I can go here and I favorite my grid menu. So now I can easily access this. So I can demonstrate different types of grids here for you now. So we have a smaller grid, we have a big grid. We recently added some isometric grids as well to create some nice 3D drawings. You can add a handwriting grid for learning handwriting. We have college line grids and a lot, right? So there's different types of graph papers also available based upon, the type of graph paper teachers use in different countries. So for example, in India, they use this one a lot more. We have Syllaboard and Elconin, and so many of these, of course, are all teacher recommended. So I'm sure you know how to use those better than we do. And then we have associated tools like that as well, which go with these grids. So for example, if I go to a grid painter, I can specifically paint areas like this and so create some interesting charts and bar graphs and so on. Yes, Paul, any other questions?
So another one was somebody saying that their students were being forced to log in. If you can show one more time how to disable the login.
Sure. So you go up here to the settings options here, and then you can see this option, only logged in users can join board. So if you have that enabled, then your students are going to see a login panel whenever they click on your invite. But if you disable it, then they just get an option to enter their name and they can join the board. Now, do keep in mind that they can close the browser and come back to using the same invite link. And if they type in the same name, they get back onto their same board. That's fine.
Right. Okay, couple of more questions. Can the students add post-it responses similar to Padlet or Jamboard?
I'd like to maybe know a little bit more about, maybe I can show you a way to add an answer box, which is probably what I think your post-it response may be. So let's say that
or a poll. I think with some of those things we can cover in the advanced webinar set, because it will take
yeah,
too
we're
long.
sort of running short of time as well.
Right, and there's one more question, sorry.
Yeah.
Can you speak briefly about video conferencing and maybe show chat as well, Sid?
Sure. Yeah. So the video conferencing, some of this, so there's two ways, of course, you can do videos material. One is that you can add media. So in tools, we have an option to add media. So you can add a webcam photo or audio, video files as well. So if you enable this, it essentially gives your students a way to sort of take written material and then take a snapshot of that written material and take a photo of that, right? So if I do that, they can, of course, they can hold it closer. And so that's one way to add some media to it. In terms of the audio video options, there's based upon the plan that you use, actually, you can get the option to start an audio video call with your students. And it could be a group call as well, or an individual call as well. So let me see. And there was one more thing that you mentioned, the chat option that you wanted me to show, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see if now the chat is really wonderful, because now the teacher needs to first enable chat. So not all boards automatically get the chat enabled, so students cannot be doing any chatting between themselves. And now to enable the chat, the teacher goes to the participants up here and then says create chat, right? And then now this changes to a chat icon, and the teacher can now begin the chat from the students. Now the difference between this chat and the regular chat is that whatever the teacher types goes to all the students as a broadcast, but when the students respond, they respond only back to the teacher, and it tells you exactly who the recipients are. So this is the recipients of the whole class, or the teacher can even choose to chat with an individual, right? Now, if I switch over to the Sarah's, I can see Sarah is now can see whatever the teacher typed in. But when Pawan sent out a message, that message did not go back to Sarah. Now, here's a really another powerful thing that we can show along with the chat is that the student can select. So if they go to this 3-dot menu up here, actions menu, the student can select the chat language that they want to converse in. So if they select, let's say German, okay, and if the teacher types in a message, as you can see, that has been automatically translated based upon the student's choice of language, right? So it's really useful for teachers to be able to communicate with students who may be a little less comfortable with English. And okay, yeah, any other?
No, I think
the question with Teams as well. Yes, so we have integrated very tightly with Teams. If you'd like me to just quickly show you how to add it into Teams, the Teams we typically have a much more sort of elaborate session to work with. But just to show you, so this is my Teams window, and I can go into apps section down here. And if you just search for whiteboard.chat, you'll be able to find this. It's already up here for me. So if you select this, and all that you need to do is click on open, and this adds the whiteboard.chat app for you in Teams. Now you can directly log in with Teams, or you can create an account. You can also, if you have a registration with whiteboard.chat, you can use it both inside and outside Teams with the same account as well.
And you can also do share to center stage and assignments. Yes. Is all integrated with Teams. So there's a very deep integration in Microsoft that we have done.
Right. So we've added, you can add to assignments, and you can also add the same boards to the meetings and so
on. One more request is to show the poll feature.
Okay.
So there are two ways to do the poll. One, you can create a form, or very simply what Sid is going to show you is a simpler poll. Sorry.
Right. So if you click on this actions menu or the 3-dot menu, there's a new poll. This opens up this panel here. Now you can select which students need to be involved, or you can just say, I want to send a poll to everybody. And I would like to send a poll. And this format of this is very simple, right? So here's a simple one that I already have here. What is your favorite Sesame Street character? Elmo, Cookie Monster. I must send it. And now this teacher gets to see what the poll responses are. So far, there have been no responses. Let me go to Sarah's window. So this is Sarah's view of the poll. Sarah likes Cookie Monster. So let's pick Cookie Monster. And so now you can see that Sarah has picked Cookie Monster and so on. And Del Pound picked Del. So that's a simple way to do one type of poll. And the other way is by going to the widget section. We have a form factory. Now you can, so here's an example of a simple form, right? It is best to drink water, juice. So let me just type this in directly. So what this does is it gives you the ability to add a label. And I can say water. And these are the various options. Okay. And I can see that in the answer. So this creates a simple little form for your students. And so they can pick the radio button, or they can type it in, and once they click submit, and the teacher can view the results of the poll. There you go. And the names are normally hidden so that in case the teacher shares it, you're not exposing who selected which answer, right? And then you can get a graphical representation of the poll results and so on as well. Yes. Any other questions?
I think
over the copy paste.
Okay. Yeah, there's a clock as well. Okay. Clock timer we showed you, right? There's
timer is right out here. If you sorry, not here, this right here. There's a timer mechanism here. So you just type in how many minutes, set the timer, and that starts the time countdown here. And then of course they get a little alarm. So for example, you will get to see, I'm just going to put a really short time kind of here. And so you'll see how the alarm gets raised for the students as well. So they get a visual indicator and there's a little sound associated with it as well. Okay. And one thing really quick to mention also is that on the toolbar up here, students have the option to raise their hand. And so they can say that I'm finished, for example. And so the teacher gets a response. Teacher can even click on Sarah's unfinished response, and that automatically navigates the teacher to Sarah's board as well. So this is super convenient in case there's an assignment that you're tracking. You just quickly jump onto their board, see how they've done, give them a reward sticker if you want, and then go back to the instructor board. Yes, we're almost running short of time, but I think we have a couple of minutes for a few more questions. So what we typically do is we complete the recording by just on the top of the hour, and then we can take questions based on, just you can go on unmute and ask questions as well. So let me stop the recording here.